Okay, the firearm we have here is a standard Colt AR-15A3 model carbine. It has everything on it is bare bone stock, including the carrying handle. Doesn't have a four-way grip on the front. It has a standard pistol grip, and it's semi-automatic only. Collapsible stock. This is basically the kind of weapon that you'd buy off the shelf without paying for any accessories or any extra money. In my particular training through the Marine Corps and law enforcement, including SWAT and sniper programs that I've been through, they talk a lot about the shooting fundamentals. Basically, the shooting fundamentals that we were talking about today in reference to the part that we want to describe to you is going to talk about grip and also the trigger control. Indexing on the trigger, also the trigger fall through, multiple shots, and anything that's going to affect your indexing of the trigger on this particular weapon with the standard stock pistol grip. And it's also going to talk about the enhancements that will be made through the part that we'll describe to you in terms of how we can correct some of those issues as far as the grip goes. When it comes to the shooting fundamentals in regards to your trigger pull and your grip, which go hand in hand, basically when you grip a weapon like this, your hand has to be up tight on the back strap. And what generally happens, since this is a stock weapon, is they don't build them for the individual, they build them for the masses. And when you get something like that, anybody with a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller hand is going to have a lot of trouble indexing their finger properly on the trigger. So when you get your hand up onto the pistol grip and get a good firm grip on it, when you index your finger, if you're trying to catch the pad in the right spot on your finger to get a straight rearward trigger pull, it's oftentimes difficult if this is not set for your hand. Basically for my hand, it's a little bit oversized in compared to the average, so I have to actually create an arcing motion when I pull my trigger. Basically what you're looking for when your trigger breaks, you have to have a straight rearward pull. This problem as far as the grip and the index is in CQB shooting, when you put it in the pocket of your collarbone and shoot from the collarbone, and also from the shoulder when you're doing long distance shooting. So either way, my arcing motion that is generally caused with my trigger pull is going to make the round go to one side. So what I'm looking for is an adjustable type of system so that I can get a straight rearward trigger pull when the shot actually breaks. Without something like that, it has to be muscle memory as far as where I index it every time, and in a combat situation or something like that where I'm trying to index quickly, it's oftentimes hard to get that. Any little variation in my muzzle at the time of the break is going to have a huge impact downrange as far as where your print's going to be on paper. When talking about trigger pull with your actual indexing of your finger, there's two different styles that people use, and a lot of times they'll try to do this in a CQB environment, but it's almost impossible because it's hard to make the muscle memory. But some shooters will try to relax their finger and actually have the knuckle bend at this point in the inward direction, and that generally can create a straight rearward trigger pull. However, trying to do that in a rapid fire or a CQB environment, next to impossible unless you train on it pretty much every day. So if you can't do that, obviously the next option is to have a traditional arcing motion with your finger, and as long as that trigger is indexed in the right spot, it will be consistent. However, it does create an arcing motion, and that's going to pull your rounds. So if you had the ability to move this pistol grip forward or backward to adjust for your particular hand size, you can minimize that arcing motion. And again, we're talking about the breaking of the trigger as far as when it breaks, and you have a complete rearward trigger pull at that point. That's what you're looking for. The way I was trained in the sniper program is 2,007-inch movement at the muzzle, and at 308 is going to translate into a 1-inch difference on print on paper at 100 yards. So you can see by having an arcing motion on your trigger finger, when that shot breaks, if you get 2,007-inch, that's going to have a pretty big impact downrange. So with this adjustable pistol grip, what you can do is minimize that arcing motion or completely eliminate it. And another benefit to that is whenever you index your hand, no matter how you grab it, how quickly you try to acquire it, it's going to go right to the natural point. And once your position on the trigger is in the natural point, it's going to be extremely consistent as far as when that trigger breaks. Straight rearward pull. As far as indexing the trigger, when you have this set to where you want it, there is no chance of overextending your trigger through the trigger well, or also not getting it in there completely where you want it, and it's going to naturally put right in the center of your pad on your trigger finger. Another thing to be careful of with an improper position on the grip, when you are actually firing, say, a 2-round press, or you're firing multiple rounds pretty rapidly, if you're not properly indexed and you have to have your finger offset away from the weapon because your grip is too close or too far away. What you can get if you're trying to fire more rapidly is, in order to do proper trigger fall through and trigger control, a lot of times your finger will have to come off or it will bounce on the weapon with the recoil. That tends to lead to an improper replacement of your index on the trigger for the next follow-up shot. If this pistol grip was set according to your hand size and it was a natural placement every single time, that recoil and that fall through is going to be a natural arcing, and you'll probably be less prone to take your finger off the trigger for the fall through, in terms of once that shot breaks and you release that trigger, your trigger finger can stay on the trigger longer and still maintain the proper indexing. With rapid fire or multiple shots, that's pretty difficult when you have to compensate for an improper arcing of your finger because of an improper positioning on the pistol grip. Whether you're a precision shooter or a CQB style shooter, whatever your needs require, basically the ability to slide a pistol grip forward or backward to adjust your hand. If you can actually find a setting that is applicable to both, or if you find that one is better for the other, basically if you're a CQB shooter and that's what you're primarily going to do and you get that set, it's such a benefit to have a quick natural index on that trigger finger. If you're doing precision shooting, long distance shooting, you can get even more precise with that as far as your trigger pull. It just increases the consistency and allows you to adjust it for whatever you want. I think if you really focused on it, you could probably find a happy medium for both styles of shooting with one setting on the pistol grip, simply because the size of your hand doesn't change, and basically when you index that, regardless of whether you're shooting out of the shoulder or off the collarbone, that's not going to really change the angle to your pistol grip and the index on your trigger finger. So once you get that on and you decide to put it in a certain position to find out what's best for you, I think if you work through the different positions and shooting styles and shooting theories, I think you'll find that you can probably find one position that's very consistent for all of those different types of shooting styles. Between shoulder shooting for long distance or precision, if that's what you choose to do, such as like coming out of your shoulder like this, if you look at the elbow on my right arm, you can see that if I were to transition into a CQB style shooting method off my collarbone and right up tight against my cheek so my head is straight up and down, the angle of my hand and my elbow doesn't really change. When I go to this, now I'm in a CQB style shooting platform and back to long distance shooting, basically out of the armpit pocket. The angle of my elbow doesn't change, which actually makes it so that my hand placement on the pistol grip and my indexing on my trigger is going to be basically the same for myself. So I think when you find, like we were saying before, is if you find a good position that matches your hand to your trigger, so you get that straight rearward trigger pull on the brake, you'll find that either shooting position is going to be exactly the same or extremely close. So once you find that position, it should be beneficial to utilize the same positioning for both shooting styles.